BodyBags, where horror lies.
Hey guys, Rob from Georgia here with you, and I'm your Wednesday host for BodyBags. And what is this, week 297? I'm pretty sure it's 297. And tonight I got something just a little bit, no, it's a lot different. It is Takashi Miike's 2001 release of his film, The Happiness of the Katakuris. Of course, directed by the man himself, Takashi Miike, and I'll just note the cinematographer, Hideo Yamamoto. I'm pretty sure that's how you say his name. Significant only because he's worked with Miike other times, such as Ichi the Killer, Visitor Q, and I want to say Audition. So it's always good when you can use the same guy multiple times, right? You get to know each other a little bit. And this is, interestingly enough, this is a film, it is also, just in case you didn't know, a Japanese film, different from the original film from what it's remade from, which is South Korean. But this film was released, ironically perhaps, considering its emphasis and what it strives to do, was released in the US in August 2002, and of course we're still fresh off the 2001 terrorist attacks, and seeing that this is a film that emphasizes family, the family unit, and overcoming great odds, interesting, and probably unfortunate this was a film not seen widely by people back in 2002. Produced by Shochiku. Film, of course, released by Arrow in 2015. And I have to thank Derek, of course, because this was one of the films that he sent to me as a gift. And this was, last night was my second viewing. And I did it with, there's two commentaries on here of interest. Tamba, who is the biographer, or a biographer on of Takashi's life. And of course, Takashi Miike also has a commentary in here, which you have the option of hearing either dubbed or the subtitles, I believe. I have not listened to that yet, but I will soon. But I thought, listening to the biographer, I might kind of get a bigger scope of some of the things behind this. And of course, this release also comes with a neat little book, not terribly long, a few articles here. It's 2-disc release, Blu-ray and DVD, and reversible cover art as Arrow usually does. But once again, and it is fully, it is loaded with a lot of stuff here, a lot of extras and interviews and whatnot, the making of. But anyways, Happiness. I'm still getting used to Takashi's work, and man, this guy's all over the map, which is a good thing, because you never want to be stereotyped into a corner, so to speak, because then you miss out on other great opportunities. And you think of films like 13 Assassins, comparable to Happiness, to Audition, and of course Dead or Alive, and just the whole scope of his filmography. He's about 100. He may be working on his 104th film now, and he has just been blessed to be able to create as an artist just a huge scope of work. But I am now, really just getting to know him a little tiny bit. And so last night was really just the second viewing of this film. And just the plot real quick. Again, this is a Japanese film, and really you have a family who is economically dire straits, and the father uses what little bit he's got left and purchases a lodge at the base of Mount Fuji, hoping to manage a lodge with his family, and there's promises that the government's going to build a road, a highway that's going to come close to the property, and so they may get the advantage of getting tourists and getting a lot of business. And so it's sort of that last gamble, because for the father, this idea of prosperity really for him is really closely intertwined with from prosperity comes happiness? And that is a question that Takashi Miike really asks in this movie, is really, what is happiness? Unlike the film that he's remade, The Quiet Family from '98, Kim Ji-woon, South Korean film, free of the musical sequences that Takashi has integrated into his film, his vision of the source material, which was written by Kim Ji-woon. Contest that he submitted, actually. He wrecked his car and submitted two scripts and won on both of them and got to make this movie, The Quiet Family. But for Kim Ji-woon, it's more of a serious reflection of the dictatorship in South Korea. I guess it was referred to as a developmental dictatorship from 1961 to '79, and really Park Jin-hee, I think, really did everything in his power to really pull South Korea sort of out of its economic dark ages into the present. But how he went about it was really hurtful to the nation in terms of who paid the price for advancing forward. And just one example, there is a huge stretch of highway from one end of Korea to the other end of South Korea, and anyone who was anywhere near this highway basically got displaced. So it's probably ends up not being a surprise to many that come 1979, he will be assassinated actually by one of the people that he has actually put into their position of power. And so the film is also a reflection of their economic chaos in Korea. So it is really a black comedy that takes itself very serious in terms of looking back at its past, where Takashi Miike takes the same material, and though he's Japanese, Japan also has just recently had what they refer to as the lost 2 decades, economic collapse, when the stock market collapsed, I want to say 94, something like that. And so part of this film sort of looks back at that, but also maybe more importantly, unlike The Quiet Family, where it's about the disintegration of the family, Miike's film is more about maintaining the family even through hard times. And the father sees, of course, prosperity as the answer. His daughter sees love as the answer, and she just can't seem to find it. And the only one who seems to get it right, though, is his granddaughter, his little 5-year-old granddaughter, who does serve as the narrator for this film. And because of that, really, Takashi Miike gets to basically see through her eyes, and that allows this openness of really being able to do anything and everything you want to do without any real explanation. And so some of the claymation at the beginning and throughout towards the end, the musical sequences may take some off guard and maybe even throw some off from even finishing the film who start watching it. We got to remember, it's really told through the eyes of a 5-year-old versus The Quiet Family, who's told, narrated by the 17-year-old daughter, who sees her family with great amount of agitation, but then the source of this agitation is South Korea's past. And so what we have are really original source material that is reflecting on real historical events, and then Takashi's vision of that source material, but asking the question, what is happiness and what is the source of happiness? Well, ultimately in the end, it is family, and it is a close-knit family, and it's 4-generation family that lives at this lodge. And to extend the plot just a little bit, I don't know, I can't even remember now if I even laid out the whole thing out. Upon opening this lodge, just like The Quiet Family, You're introduced to a character who sort of comes in out, well, a group of characters for Takashi's film, who comes in out of nowhere, a bunch of spiritualists who basically say, doom, 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 doom. It's not going to be good. Whereas the Quiet Family, it's one person in particular who shows up at the beginning and cries, doom, doom, doom. It's not going to be good. But from the very get-go, in Happiness, as soon as the first guest arrives, they ultimately commit suicide that evening. And in order to protect their investment, the father makes the decision, and the family ultimately rallies around him, and that is to bury the body. And ultimately, this will sort of snowball effect in multiple bodies being buried, but ultimately towards the end, the resolution will be such that they will escape criminality. Not to really give the end away, but it is about the integrity of the family, and certain things are allowed to happen in order to secure that. And so I mean, it's interesting. It's amazing to me that you can watch 13 Assassins and just, I mean, what a masterpiece. That movie is just mind-blowing to me. And then you put on Happiness of the Katakuris, and it's like, I will say this, in the beginning, once the claymation aspect is done and you're finally dropped into real world, and the first person you meet is the grandpa, it's just, a bird is flying over and has just dropped poop on his head, and out of frustration and anger, he takes a stick in his hand, and he just, I mean, it's one of the most far-fetched things ever, but he takes that stick and throws it, and wouldn't you know it, no matter how high that bird is, that stick, boom, hits that bird, and that bird, one of the funniest scenes I've ever seen in a movie. I mean, it was just absolutely hilarious. Which reminds me, in The Quiet Family, there's a scene when the father, the patriarch of the family, convenient or just out of, I don't know, some sort of frustration, really out of nowhere, just gets up from the dinner table and just, the dog is out of sight eating. You can hear the dog eating. And you can hear the dad just kick the dog, and the dog goes whimpering up and down the hall. It's just like, what is this? But both films are very interesting, and I would say that if you haven't seen Happiness of the Katakuris, but you're always interested in checking out Takashi and Miike's filmography, I would suggest that you check out The Quiet Family and just get a good perspective on what a really good remake is, because I really do think this is a great remake. We often, especially of late in the groups, have brought up the question of what are the greatest remakes, and and they're thrown out there. You never hear the Happiness of the Katakuris, and it ought to be up there because Takashi brings such a unique sense of vision to this thing that it perhaps is what remakes ought to be when taken in its totality. So anyways, this is week 297, and I am your Wednesday host, Rob from Georgia, and I think I'm just going to go ahead and just end it there. Not sure where my time is, and just say, yeah, I mean, check it out, man. If you haven't, it's quite a blast, and it really demands multiple viewings, I think, and it really demands ultimately knowing what Takashi's intent is, because if you just come in, like my wife came home late from work last night, and it was heading towards the end, and she sat on the couch, and I literally, within 5 minutes, she almost got up and walked out of the room because it was just too strange for her. So this is a movie you really, if you just walk into it, it may be awkward, but you got to give it a chance and just understand. If anything, I guess the question is happiness. What is it? How do we attain it? And the integrity of the family unit. And this is unlike Visitor Q, where Takashi explored the disintegration of the family. Here he explores the integrity of the family and the importance of it from a Japanese traditional position, I believe, probably. So anyways, so there you go, Takashi Miike's Happiness of the Katakuris, and yeah, we'll leave it at that, guys. Have a great rest of your week as we roll on into the weekend, and looking forward to episode 300 down the line. Some big things coming there, and as always, we'll just leave you with Go Bills.